MLS Aces Podcast, episode 272. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, and it feels like I'm doing this for a second time this week because I am, but doing this with me, Jason Vivang. Jason, how are you, man?
Hey, we're chilling 2 times in 1 week. The
Hey.
listeners are lucky.
Hey, listeners are lucky. We're also lucky. It's MLS Cup playoff season time, right? You know, it's the best time of the year.
It is a great time of year right now.
Exactly. And just to let all the listeners, a little bit into some insight into when we're recording right now, we are recording on Wednesday so that we can drop this episode on our normal Thursday drop to also give you enough time to prep, listen, and get ready for the weekend game. So with that, unfortunately, we are recording the same night of the play-in games. Sorry, that's just one. It's crappy scheduling.
I mean, otherwise we'd have to be recording at midnight or something.
Literally, because East Coast, at least for me, Jason's in Central, the Kansas City games at 9:30 Eastern, it all just kind of sucks. So we're doing the best we can with this. So for the Cincinnati and St. Louis games, we'll give our best to kind of just talk about Cincinnati and St. Louis, I think, pretty much. And we'll get to that conversation when we get to that conversation. But first and foremost, before we get into anything covering the first round of this MLS Cup playoff season this year, let's just take a quick look back, Jason, at our preseason picks, because we did god-awful at making any
it's
type
a hard
of
league to predict. It's a hard league to predict. Actually, if you look at the playoff ones, we were okay.
We'll get to the playoff picks in a second, but let's take a look at who we picked to take home some silverware in 2023. Yeah. And to be honest, to the listeners straight off the bat, Jason's the only one to get a pick right in this entire thing. So MLS Cup, we both went with two teams that were
I got the arguably easiest one right, though. Just
okay, we'll start with that.
The lowest amount of picks.
Canadian Championship, I went with Toronto. I was high on Toronto in the offseason. Jason, you went with Vancouver, and the Caps took it. So shout out to you for getting that right, sir.
Shout out. There. I needed that one for this. Builds confidence.
U.S. Open Cup, I went with Columbus Crew. You went with SC Dallas. I don't think either of them went that far. I think Columbus might have lost to a USL, if I remember correctly, but, is what it is. Leagues Cup, in a complete, we didn't even know what the hell to expect from Leagues Cup random guesses. I went with the Galaxy, you went with Monterey. I'm going to say you got probably the furthest of the two clubs there, because I don't think the Galaxy did well in Leagues Cup.
Those two, yeah, but
yeah, of those two, you got the better pick, right?
I mean, if you had picked Miami, it would have been or Houston or Nashville.
Yeah, right.
Nashville, Miami, right?
It was Nashville, Miami. Yeah.
I mean, like Houston was in the U.S. Open Cup.
Maybe next year we can have a little bit of a better understanding of like what to expect, which might help us with picks and winners, but probably not. CONCACAF Champions League, we both got the best two MLS teams left, semifinalists in Philly and LAFC. I went with Philly, you went with LAFC. Unfortunately, LAFC.
Yeah, the runners up.
Yeah, losing in the final two.
I was closer on that, so that's a half point.
Yeah, I'll give you a half point. That's fine. I'll give you 5 semifinalists.
Track of any of this, so we don't
know. Supporter Shield picks. I went with LAFC. You went with Philly. We swapped picks there. Neither cracked the top two because LAFC finished third in the West. And then MLS Cup picks, I went with Toronto. You went with Austin. MLS Cup hasn't happened yet, but neither of our picks can happen. So that's how we know we did great.
Austin, I was so high on. I just had to put that out there. I've said this a couple times already this year, but I cannot believe how wrong I was on them. I can't believe how disappointing they were.
I was so high on Toronto. I was just like Bob Bradley, like they're going all in. Like they're not going to be good in the long term.
That was arguably worse, honestly.
They were the worst team in the league. So yeah, that is maybe the worst pick. So that's on me. That's on me.
Colorado. Oh, I guess Colorado did beat them on points. That's insane.
22 points, showing you why we are the MLS Aces right there. Let's take a look at the playoff team. So we're not going to go through where we placed everyone or whatever. Pretty much, I picked 7 out of the 9 teams in the Eastern Conference playoffs that made it. I just missed out on Charlotte and Columbus. Columbus
Who did you
is a
have
big.
Instead?
I have it right here. I'm prepared. I am prepared. In the East, I had Miami in a playoff spot, and I had Toronto in a playoff spot. So that makes sense. At least I was consistent with my Toronto picking of them being good.
I mean, if you didn't pick them in the playoffs, but pick them to win MLS Cup, you would have been concerned.
You got 8 out of the 9 teams.
Who was the other one? Toronto and who?
Toronto and Miami. So
Miami. Oh, yeah. You were close.
Yeah, and I had Charlotte in 10th, right? They made it in 9th. It's not like I was that far off. Whatever. You picked 8 out of the 9 in the East correctly. You just missed out on New England. You replaced them with NYCFC. I appreciate that, but yeah, you were wrong there, sir.
It wasn't that wrong, to be fair.
No, it really wasn't. And you had New England a little further down. It's okay. I completely whiffed on Columbus too. I had them in 12th. I don't even know where my head was at, but whatever. In the Western Conference, in the West, I did better than you by a team. I got 6 out of the 9. You got 5 out of the 9. We both missed out on St. Louis. We both missed out on Houston. And then I missed out on SKC. You missed out on Vancouver and San Jose. So, I mean, look.
I was high on Vancouver, but it wasn't that high. They did better than I thought.
We both had Austin in the playoffs. We both had the Galaxy in the playoffs. We both had Colorado in the playoffs. So, we missed out. We missed out for sure on a few picks, a few sides there for sure. And obviously St. Louis was a complete, I think, shock to a lot of people.
I think St. Louis was a shock that everyone follows the league.
Literally, look, there was the experts over at MLSsoccer.com and what you see on Apple TV and such. They were picking St. Louis to finish near the bottom, if not at the bottom. So it is what it is with that. The last preseason pick that I just want to look back at was the clubs we got exactly right in the standings. I got 3 of 29 teams correct. You got 2 of 29 teams correct. So, I mean, not too bad. I got Nashville finishing in 7th, NYCFC finishing in 11th, and San Jose finishing in 9th in their respective conferences. Mm-hmm. You got Chicago in 13th and Minnesota in 11th. We both picked our clubs correct,
Yeah, I was going into that last week of the season, and I knew I picked them in 13th because I went back and looked. Because I was talking to one of my friends, and he was like, "Where did you have Chicago finishing?" I was like, "I think I had them in 13th," and that's definitely where they're going to end up because they're going to be disappointing in the end. And they were.
You know your club. You know your club. That's it, bro. That's it. Hey, it's good that we can at least get our teams somewhat right to know that we at least know what's going on.
Is it a little bit depressing though?
Yes. I mean, look. I'm a New York sports fan. I'm used to.
We both picked our teams to finish out of the playoffs. Yeah, and it happened.
Look, next year I'm high on NYCFC. I haven't even seen the offseason moves yet, but quickly, I just want to mention 2 things moves-wise. Speaking of the offseason that have happened, and then we'll dive into the first round playoffs. Inter Miami already announced their offseason moves for their roster. I don't know if you saw it. It only dropped not too long ago. But pretty much the only notable player that is not returning for Miami in 2024 is Josef Martinez. So the king of Orlando, or the daddy of Orlando, whatever he wants to call himself as, he will be on the move. We could hopefully still see him in Major League Soccer. That would be ideal for me, and I think a lot of fans around the league. And then the other thing was with the LA Galaxy, nothing official has come out yet of players leaving or staying or decisions made on roster moves or whatever. But it's confirmed Ricky Puig is back next year. Chicharito's still a question mark if he's returning, and Douglas Costa will not return next year. So that is an open DP spot for the Galaxy. So let's see if that new front office they got going doesn't mess.
It's still the Galaxy, so that should be an interesting spot, right?
Yeah, it's still LA. They can pull a big name DP. We'll see. We'll talk about it as the as the off season comes about for sure. Let's dive into our preview, our prediction of the MLS Cup playoffs first round. Again, not knowing the result of the 2 playing games, but we'll get to that as it comes. And with this new, I guess, playoff format of Apple TV and everything like that, I just want to give an explanation to people listening or watching this of what's going to come with these first round games. So each first round matchup is a best of 3 series. The first team to win 2 games of the 3 total possible games will move on. So if you win the first 2 games, you don't have to play the third. You're moving on to the next round. There are no draws in any of these games. If any, at the end of regulation, if any of these games are tied at any point, whatever, any score, then they will go straight to penalty kicks, no extra time, nothing like that. So at least it saves the players' legs a little bit there. Personally, I am not a fan of this format at all. I think the format kind of sucks, but as we know,
the format is just too back and forth. It's like just pick one, and I think that's what it suffers from the most is people just don't know really what to expect each time. It's like
it just adds so many games to these guys' legs as well. Just like if you're gonna do more than just single elimination, then just give me an aggregate, one home each, and then move forward. Like just give me that then. But
I would I think a home and home for the whole knockout round would be the aggregate goals would be a great way to do it.
I mean, look, we've seen how many countless, like, just great aggregate. I'd call them series, even though they're not. It's great aggregates.
No away goals rule.
Yeah, that's fine.
Goals, extra, just PKs.
Just PKs. Yeah, just go PKs after that if it's tied. And look, I agree, but at the end of the day, TV money rules all. Apple TV money specifically here rules all, and they want more games. They want more, content for MLS season pass, and that's what's going to happen.
I mean, that's what this was. But if you went home and home for every round of this, except for the play, I think the play should stay as one game. But you would end up with more games. So
I mean, I liked the single elimination too. I think it just created a ton of chaos.
Yeah,
it was intense. It was chaos.
Teams can't really sit back. They can't cheer.
100%. It was. I liked it too, but unfortunately for this year, this is the reality we're living in. You know what I'm saying? So this is what we have to deal with. And after this round, we do get a change in format once again. So we'll talk about that once we get past this first round for sure. So let's start in the Eastern Conference, if you're okay with that. And let's go with Orlando City SC, number 2 seeded Orlando City SC versus number 7 seeded Nashville SC. Again, both teams getting a home game. Orlando would get the possibility of 2 home games in this aggregate. But historically, there's 10 games played between these two sides. The teams have an equal record here. Each team has 3 wins, each team has 3 losses, and each team has 4 draws. This season, each team has a win in their 2 matchups, Orlando taking 1, Nashville taking 1. Orlando has 4 wins and a draw in their last 5 games, while Nashville's kind of struggling walking into these playoffs here with a win, 2 draws, and 2 losses.
They have scored in one of their last 5 games, I believe. I think they have 2 goals in 5 games or something. So
it hasn't been. I think Nashville has been held scoreless in 4 of their last 5 games. But if you want to look at the flip side, they have held opposing teams scoreless in 2 of their last 5. So the defense
that's the Nashville way right there.
Hey, that's the Gary Smith way. I almost forgot Gary Smith's name. It's just we're gonna just beat you 1-0. This is where, though, Nashville, you've already lost a final this season on penalty kicks, so maybe you need to go out and get that decisive goal. But let's talk about that. Let's start with Nashville, right? So while we're on them, it hasn't been too great offensively for them as of late, or I think since their arrival to Major League Soccer. We have said it before as on this podcast as a joke. People have said it before, so it's not only us of just offensively, it's Hani Mukhtar or it's nothing. My only point that I want to say about Nashville here really is Hani hasn't scored since September 20th. He's on a 6-game scoreless streak in Major League Soccer. So they're one shining knight in shining armor.
Has he has assist? Has he has assist?
No. Sorry, 1 assist. 1 assist in that time. 1 assist in that
But in that time, they've scored 3 goals?
Exactly. So my point is, look, and I'll start off, I think, with the easy layup as we get warmed up into this episode. If Nashville want to win, Hani needs to be scoring or producing offensively, and he hasn't been doing that, so that's my concern. So I guess Nashville, for you, what if they need to win this this series? What do they need to do?
I mean, it's obvious, right? 15 goals and 11 assists for Hani on the season, I think
he's the dude
to Lucho Acosta. With, I believe, 27, just off the top of my head, but I think it's 27.
That's impressive if it's right. I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it's 27 because I love that goals plus assist stat.
Let me see.
But I mean, that's how many goals did they score this season? They scored 39 goals, and he contributed to 26 of them. It starts and ends with money. And I think of all the players, that's the guy who could do it, right? Like, that's the one you want on your team going into a playoff series. Because at any moment, he could pull something out of his ass, right? He could create a chance. He could do anything, right? I think he's he is, in my opinion, the best player in the series, right? So on either side, if this was a one game, I don't know. The thing about Nashville is that their defense is so good, and it's always good, right? So they're going to play their way. They're going to slow it down. They're going to use their defense to their advantage. I think to go into a little bit of Orlando here as well, Duncan McGuire is going to have a good series, right? Because he was their kind of surprise, right? Like, people had hyped him up coming into the league. Obviously, he was, I think, like the second or first overall draft.
Is it a surprise anymore when Orlando City drafts a good striker out of the super draft? Like, is it a surprise?
I guess it's not a surprise, but I don't think anyone expected him to end the season with 13 goals, right? Which is incredible for a rookie in his first year coming out of college. So I think if Orlando is going to be able to break it down, they're going to have to be playing into Duncan McGuire, and he's going to have a good couple games. Obviously, they have Facundo Torres, who's been very, very good as well. 14 goals and 4 assists for him. But I don't want to make my pick yet unless we're ready. But
no, I have some Orlando points I want to talk about.
But I think in terms of Orlando, like, it's sort of like Orlando's attack versus Nashville's defense, and which one's going to win that battle.
Yeah.
And then can Hani get back into form and do something crazy, right? Which we all know he can. We all know he's capable of it. But
I mean, look, he won MVP. Excuse me, he won MVP a season ago. He was at a certain point this season on a MVP campaign, right?
He won MVP a year ago, and then he put up 26 goals and assists combined, which I'm still pretty sure is second. I don't know if you ever figured that out.
Sorry, I did. So it's if you want to count Major League Soccer assists, he is not second. So that's the difference. If you want to just count strict normal assists plus goals, he is second. If you want to add in other factors,
we don't want to do the hockey assists.
He's fourth. I think he's fourth if you add in the hockey assists. But still.
But we're not doing that.
So then he's second. But I agree with you, right? It is Orlando's offense, especially a lot of guys who have been hot lately compared to the strong defense of Nashville. You know, the Shaq Moores, Daniel Lovitz's. As you mentioned, I don't have him in our notes, but the Walker Zimmerman still exists of Nashville SC, even though he hasn't played the most games on that back line this year.
He's still an aerial threat for corners. He's still a threat on attack.
He's probably their second most offensive threat, just as much as he's their probably top defensive threat. But the point that I want to make for Orlando is that they're a very good road team. They're the best road team in Major League Soccer this season. Orlando has the most wins, and they've gotten the most points on the road this season in the entirety of Major League Soccer. One of those road wins was a 1-0 road win over Nashville SC. Like, Orlando,
which is arguably one of the harder places at this point.
Geodis Park, they pack it out over there. So Orlando has done it all season long at home and on the road. And they've already done it in Nashville. I'm not saying that's going to be a direct correlation to this, but you have a Duncan McGuire who has 5 goals in his last 5 games. You have Ivan Angulo who has 2 assists and a goal in his last 5 games. Facundo Torres with 2 goals in his last 5 games. This offense is clicking on all cylinders for Orlando, and this team's hot right now, going up against the Nashville team that has been good defensively, but do they have that extra juice to get past the Lions? I'm going to have you answer that question first. Who's your pick in this game?
So before we started, I said there's 2 games, I think, in the East that are honestly probably in the whole first round that are, in my opinion, like good games. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. There's probably 2 total, and this is one of them that I think actually is going to be a good series. So how do we want to pick this? Are we picking series? Like,
Yeah, you're picking
or-
who just pick who moves on. You can, if you want to go super specific, that's fine.
No,
You can
I'll
tell
pick
me.
just who moves on, because it's like, who's going to get that specifically for all of them?
It's going to be tough, yeah. And I got my marker ready, sir.
I know, and it's a marker. I can't. So all day I've been going back and forth because this is one that I was excited about, and I think I'm going to go with Nashville.
Okay.
I just think their defense is good enough to slow down Orlando's attack, and there's Hani Mukhtar on one side, and I'm going to bet on that dude every single time.
And Hani you trust. So for those who didn't listen to the mini episode we did earlier this week, go back and listen. The listens and views are nice for us as a podcast. But Jason, you did pick Charlotte over Red Bulls. I picked Red Bulls. You did pick San Jose over SKC. I picked SKC. We're going to stay on the similar pattern here. I'm going opposite with you. I'm picking Orlando City. I don't
think it's going to stay opposite for very long, but I'm
probably not
done this for this far.
Probably not. Look, I just think that the defensive, the road warriors of Orlando City have been very good this year, and I think that's going to hold up. That's simply where I'm going to leave that one. Let's move on. Number 3 seeded Columbus Crew SC will take on number 6 seeded Atlanta United. Historically, right, there's been 16 games played for across these two teams. Columbus do hold the all-time series record with 8 wins, 2 draws, and 6 losses. This season, Columbus has a win, and the other matchup was a draw. Columbus in their last 5 games has 2 wins and 3 draws, so undefeated, while Atlanta has 1 win, 3 draws, and 1 loss in their last 5 games. Jason, pick a team and just start going with how are they going to win.
So this is the Wilfried Nancy, this is him, right? Like, this is his moment. I think in this series, they have the Columbus, that is, has the advantage in manager. We saw Cucho Hernandez come in and just fly off the mark, right? Mm-hmm. Christian Ramirez has been good. Matan has been good.
Diego Rossi's still there,
Yeah, Diego Rossi, who is unbelievable and is just almost like the 3rd or 4th fiddle on the team. I think this is one of those picks that, like, I'm not going to say it, but I really wanted to go one way, and I just don't think I can. Just maybe a tease. But I just think Columbus has the better team. I think that they have the better manager. And I think they've been more consistent throughout the year, at least towards the back end of the year, where all of a sudden it felt like Columbus was arguably the best in the East, or in the conversation with Cincinnati. Yeah. There was that game, I don't know, what was that, like 10 weeks ago, like game 22 or something.
Yeah.
That was Columbus versus Cincinnati, and Columbus just destroyed, right? And they've just, like, that team is MLS Cup contenders, right? And that's the team that's coming into this playoffs, right? 2 wins, 2 wins and 3 draws in their last 5. They're confident. I think they're a team that's playing with, like, informed players. They're gonna hit this at the right time. So I
wonder who you're going with. I was gonna say, I really wonder who you're going with here. I will just simply add to the Columbus train there, because I agree with all of the points you just said, is that I think Cucho's in form. Yes, Giamakis is in form on the other side. They both have 3 goals in their last 5
Giamakis games. With an incredible first season.
I mean, look, he is the Josef replacement that Atlanta needed 2 years ago, right? Like 100%. But you also give me on Columbus Julian Gressel, who I still think is one of the best wingbacks in the league and perfectly fits Nance's system. You give me the back line of Steven Moreira, who I think has arguably been one of the best converted center backs in the league this season. Aiden Morris, who I said last episode, I think he's been the best 6 in the league. You have so much talent on Columbus, and I think that they've all been just having a great 2023 season. I'll give my pick away as well. It's Columbus. Columbus is winning this matchup. I do think Atlanta, has a lot of talent, right? You talk about the Giamakis, you talk about the Almadas, the Brooks Lennons, Caleb Wileys, and everything like that. And I think Atlanta's going to play well. I think they're a very good team. The biggest thing that hurts me here for Atlanta, Thiago Almada is going to miss the first game of this series because he got a red card on decision day. Without Almada, this team's not the same team. Giamakis can do everything he can do, but Almada's the dude, right?
Almada had 19 assists this season.
Are we going to count MLS assists? Then that gets all sticky here, Jason. MLS assist wise, Almada had 30 goals contributed to in total, 11 goals, 19.
Personally, that's fine. Do that.
I have the league website up, so that's the only reason why I'm telling you.
If they include it, they can include it. I like to use the FOTMob version of stats because they're called hockey assists because it's hockey, right?
That's fine. That's fine. But look, at the end of the day, Almada's the star. He is one of the top. He was, to me, the runner-up in MVP voting this year. Without him, the team's not going to flow the same. Yes, you'll still potentially have him for 2 games if you can pick up a win without him. But yeah, this
is my other matchup that I think is going to be a good matchup. Then I kind of just talked myself into believing it won't be. So,
okay.
I just convinced myself that I was like, Columbus, I think, just takes this. I just think Columbus at this point is the better team, and I do think 100%. The manager actually matters. I think Wilfried Nancy, what he's done there has been honestly awesome to watch. Like, they're a fun team to watch.
Can I call, and I always do this around playoff time. Can I call Wilfried Nancy, however you want to pronounce it, a top 3 manager in Major League Soccer?
We always do this. No, like on the top of my head, I'm like,
I would. It's Curtin. It's I don't even. I can't even It's probably Curtin. It's probably Schmetzer. Then Tata's.
Schmetzer's got to be up there.
It's Curtin. It's Schmetzer. It's Nancy. Give it to me. Roast me. Tata's up there. Chirundolo has to be up there.
Tata didn't make the playoffs. He's not in the conversation.
All right.
That should be a fair point. We're talking about playoff teams.
It's a fair point. We're not. Let's move past this. I don't want to sidetrack it too much, but we're both picking Columbus here. Yeah, 100%. My only other point to really defend Columbus is that both of these teams are really good at home this season. They were both very bad on the road this season, just like many other MLS teams. There's not many great road teams in Major League Soccer, but one of Columbus's road draws this season was at Atlanta, which was a full-strength Atlanta United side. I went back and I checked out the lineups and everything like that. Giamakis and Almada were in there. So Columbus does have a road result against Atlanta in Atlanta, so that did help me beef up my own convincing of myself that Columbus was gonna win this game.
Atlanta started strong. They kind of dipped in the middle of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting. We can dive into what went wrong with Atlanta and stuff like that, I think, as we get into the offseason for sure. I don't think Atlanta's winning MLS Cup. Watch me be, biting my words. I don't know, biting my tongue about this.
Your words.
And if I'm biting my words right now, watch me be regretting saying that in a few weeks. But I don't think Atlanta is good enough right now to win MLS Cup. They have very good players, but it's just it all hasn't clicked, and we'll get into that. That's not about this right now. We both picked Columbus to move on. Let's go to the next matchup in the Eastern Conference. Number 4 seeded Philadelphia Union take on the number 5 seeded New England Revolution. This is the most historical games played in these playoffs so far between two teams. 40 games played between the Union and New England. Philly holds the all-time series record with 21 wins, 8 draws, and 11 losses. This during this season, each team has a win in their 2 matchups, so they split the season series there.
Which was also the last game.
Yeah, exactly. There's a few of these matchups. I said that
really weird, but yeah, there's the last game of the season.
There's a few of these matchups where they were a decision day factor. LAFC and Vancouver were one, and there's another one as well. But Philly, in their last 5 games, has 1 win, 1 loss, and 3 draws. New England has 2 wins and 3 losses. So both of these teams not really coming in on the I guess, hottest footstep moving forward, heading into the playoffs this season. I'll take this one first since I threw the last one at you, Jason. I'm going to start with Philly, and I'm going to start with, I think, the struggles we've seen from a Jim Curtin side that we haven't really seen in about 4 seasons or so, I'm going to say. This is a lot of the same faces, same names that we know, but this isn't the same typical Philadelphia Union output, even with finishing 4th in the Eastern Conference. Kai Wagner has been good. He hasn't been great. He's, what's going on with him potentially leaving the team and the league next year. Alejandro Bedoya, what's going on in the locker room with other players posting that the front office isn't treating a club legend well. I think there's a lot of internal strife going on with the Philadelphia Union, which makes me very hesitant to back them. But on the flip side, they've been amazing at home, just like they always are at Subaru Park. Only 1 loss on the season there, but New England also only has 1 loss at home as well this season. Both of these teams have been some of the best home teams we've seen in the playoffs. It's tough because I want to stick with Philly, and I want to get your thoughts on Philly. There's just part of me that's thinking and feeling it's really tough to pick the side right now. This isn't the same Jim Curtin Philadelphia Union. We're seeing players that we normally see succeed. We're seeing them struggle. We're hearing off the field issues. I don't know. What's your take on the Philadelphia Union?
Is this the strife derby here in the playoffs? Both sides?
I mean, yeah, New England has had their own issues. I did not think about that. Yeah,
you were talking about that. I'm like, man, this is just the issue derby. I mean, I hear you. I think Philly they have 2 14-goal scorers, right? Which is rare. I feel like in MLS, very rare in MLS. I'd be curious to put stats to see how many times that's happened. And like, they still have these names who have been here many times, right? And it's not to say New England doesn't have names on their side who have been there, right? Former MVPs, they've got guys who are broken records in the league.
Best 11 players, 100%.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's like my main argument, but I think that just Philly has the consistency of the past, I guess, that I would weight more in this scenario. Like when the playoffs start, I think teams can tend to either like that strife and blow it up, or they kind of lock in, come more together, play out the playoffs, and then that you let that stuff blow over. And I think this is a team that's mature enough to kind of lock it in more so than letting that affect the end of their season, especially because I feel like this is getting towards. I mean, this is a dumb thing to say as a Fire fan, but I feel like this is getting sort of towards the end of this iteration of Philly, this dominance that we've seen for a long time.
I can agree.
And who knows, maybe they'll pull it out 10 years out of their ass for they're amazing. Which
I mean, look,
wouldn't surprise me at all.
You're not sitting here saying 2024 is the end of the current Philadelphia Union, but I do agree. It feels like there's a change coming with that.
And I think all of that kind of, like, the squad itself is still very talented. It's still like a lot of guys who've played many years together.
I mean, trust me. You still look at the Philadelphia Union squad. You still have 2 of the best center backs in the league. You still have Jack McGlynn, Leon Flack, Jose Martinez. Like, you still have talent across the board. And just to also toss this in there, the Union won't have Olivier Mbaizo, their right wing back, but they still have Nathan Harriel, who has been a fantastic starting when needed to start.
They've always been a team that has guys who just kind of step up.
I mean, the academy's sick.
Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's strife or whatever, kind of like the stories, the rumors, kind of go away, I think, in the playoffs. And whether that's this series, I'm trying really hard not to give away my pick while talking about both of these teams.
Do we want to lean towards New England right now?
Yeah,
like conversationally.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know. I feel like we hit the nail on the head there with Philly.
You can't talk about New England though without talking about Bruce Arena and what happened, because I think when that all happened, that was only I want to say like a month ago, a month and a half, maybe.
Yeah, maybe closer to 2 months, like somewhere
Yeah.
around there. Yeah.
And I remember our conversation thinking, where is this New England team going to go from here? Are they going to gel and connect and grow from this, or is it going to blow up? And they got dangerously close to that like blow up mark. Things got a little weird, but I don't know. I mean, I think this team is like some of the same points I made for Philly. You could kind of make for this team as well, right? Like they won the Supporters Shield, broke an MLS record for points.
It's the only reason why I say you can't make that exact argument to me simply is one name. It's Jim Curtin. New England lost their leader.
I don't mean to compare them in terms of like long-term success. Like Philly,
just like how they are recently. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of the players that have this experience, right? Like that this isn't new to them. The intensity of this isn't going to be new to some of these guys. But yeah, I mean, they lost Bruce Arena like towards the end of the season. I think losing any coach that late, regardless of how it kind of ends, for a good team, obviously it's not going to end well, right? You're not firing a good team's head coach before the playoffs.
I'm gonna give away my pick here for this, and it's as simple as this in my brain when I really started breaking it down. I know everything I just said about Philadelphia, but the New England Revolution this year have lost Bruce Arena, have lost Georgi Petrovic, have lost Brandon Bye for the season due to an injury, lost Dylan Barrero for the season due to an injury. They're out Ian Harkes in this game. At the end of the day, losses just start to add up, and it starts to affect the locker room. It starts to affect confidence. I know the fan base. I talked to quite a few Revolution fans. I know the fan base is not high on the team.
It's exhausting for that kind of storylines to carry you.
The biggest question mark is who the goalkeeper is going to be for this team. Since Georgie, it's been a rotation of Earl Edwards. I know Jacob Jackson just got his first 2 starts in Major League Soccer the last 2 weeks. You know, it's there's too many question marks.
It's New England, though. The goalkeeper will be fine.
Sure. I'm just saying, if there's too many question marks for me around New England where I'm like, okay, I'm going Philly just simply based off Jim Curtin's there. The guys we know are there. They're going to produce. Daniel Gazdag, Julian Carranza, like you said, 2 14-goal scorers in this league this season. The defense is always sturdy. I'm not saying Philly's going for a long run here, but I'm picking Philly over New England because of New England.
I will say both of these teams are some of the weakest runs coming in, right? Like,
yeah,
in the last 5 to 10 games, I feel like they have mainly tailed off. You know,
I think that's fair.
Points here and there. But I'm also going Philly. I think I kind of am just higher on Philly. I think that the manager really matters. And kind of like how I said the managerial battle matters in Columbus versus Atlanta, it's going to matter here too. And they still have Jim Curtin. So I'm going to go with them.
I think managers matter when one team has one and one of the best compared to when another team doesn't have one, and that's a complete leadership loss in a locker room.
It's also sort of like sort of a battle in the locker room too, with the front office, and that never ends well. So
100%. And look, Alejandro Bedoya doesn't seem to be long in the clubhouse for the Philadelphia Union, but that is another leader for at least the rest of this season. So we're both going with Philadelphia over New England in that series. Let's take a look at Cincinnati. We don't know who Cincinnati is going to be facing yet, Red Bulls or Charlotte FC. Again, full transparency, Red Bulls Charlotte just kicked off. We're in the 50th second. That 50th second. That's how you talk about soccer. We're in the first minute of we're in the first minute there. But, you know, I think we can take a larger conversation about Cincinnati, about how some of these players have been playing and everything like that. So for the most part, the history behind Cincinnati, whether they're facing New England or Red Bulls or Charlotte, is pretty similar. There isn't a long history for Cincinnati and Charlotte, as they only came into the season. Charlotte only came into the league last year. And then historically against the Red Bulls, Cincinnati does have a little bit of a not so great lead. We've seen the Red Bulls take down Cincinnati in playoff style competitions, whether it's the Open Cup or whether it is the MLS Cup playoffs in years past. Cincinnati does have the season lead against both of these teams as well. Specifically when I'm looking at Cincinnati, I look at game winners. Who do they have that are game winners right now on this roster? You have inevitably who's going to be the league MVP, and he was the MLS Aces MVP, Lucho Acosta. He has 3 goals and 2 assists in his last 5 games. Alvaro Barreal has 2 goals and an assist coming from his left wing back position in the last 5 games for them. Like, they have also both produced very well against Red Bulls and Charlotte this season. So when I'm looking at this in every single angle and trying to be like, okay, how can I convince myself that Charlotte or Red Bulls are going to take down the beast, the Supporter Shield winning FC Cincinnati? I can't do it. I really can't. Like, Cincinnati also is a decent road team. They have 7 wins on the road, which isn't unbelievable, but it's for Major League Soccer terms, 7 wins is pretty damn good.
They've only lost 5 times, right?
Yes, exactly.
Total.
And 3 of those losses came on the road. So it's like the home stadium is an absolute fortress for them. They're decent on the road. They have the best player in the league in 2023. They have some of the best players across positions in the league. It's, to me, I can't come up with an argument whether whoever we're talking about is going to go to Cincinnati for this. I can't come up with an argument where Cincinnati doesn't walk away and go into the second round of the playoffs.
I think it's going to be a lot more fun to talk about Cincinnati in a week. Just personally, there's no hot takes here, right? like the Charlotte and Red Bulls are just a tier below, not even, probably 2 tiers below, right? Like, it's not close. And so I'm obviously picking. I guess there's no pick here.
Well, you can. Give me a pick. Tell me. Do you?
Okay. Well, I guess Cincinnati. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess because I have Cincinnati versus Charlotte technically, and you have Cincinnati versus Red Bulls.
I was going to specifically say, can you see a world where either of these teams upset Cincinnati?
No.
That's your pick. Cincinnati's moving on. You know what I'm saying?
I don't see it. I don't see a world. I honestly, it's really not even that fun to really talk about. I think this team will be a lot of fun to talk about going into the following round, just because the what's it called, format changes slightly, and it'll be more stakes, I guess.
100%.
But yeah, I don't see, especially in a best of 3 series, I don't see either of these teams having a chance even.
No, I mean,
if it was 1 game, you never know. But
yeah,
can they win 2 out of 3 against Cincinnati? I don't think so.
Especially when Cincinnati's promised 2 home games. Like, that's also the point there, right? And I don't want.
They're gonna show up, dude. Fans are gonna be there. Like, that's a good place. They've got a lot of great fans.
Tweet one
their
thing
stadium
wrong.
Is awesome.
The stadium's sick. That is so apparently on social media earlier this year, I did say if Cincinnati made MLS Cup that I would be going to the final. I regretfully say that now because I might have to be booking a flight out to Cincinnati, Ohio. But you tweet or say one bad thing wrong about FC Cincinnati, and the fans will let you know about it. Like, it is a great fan group. It is a great stadium. It looks unbelievable. I might be getting
stadium. It's incredible.
I might be getting my first taste of what the stadium looks like. If
I saw USA Mexico there, and it was incredible. So
I mean, I have all the faith in Cincinnati to take out either side. I think Red Bulls would be the tougher opponent of the 2 if we're specifically looking at matchups. But I think Cincinnati, like you said, across 3 games can pick up 2 wins across that. So we both have Cincinnati.
Looked pretty solid through 5-ish minutes here, by the way.
I mean, hey, that's I got no response for that. If you guys listening want a little bit more of an argument of why Red Bulls or Charlotte are a good team and why they could potentially maybe upset a Cincinnati, go back and listen to the mini episode we dropped on Tuesday. We have some arguments for some players and stuff in there, but to be honest, I think it's all a moot point when we're talking about Cincinnati.
I mean, I think when you have an 8 and a 9 seed, competing for a playoff spot in this type of league. Like the 8 and 9 seed aren't great teams, right?
Exactly.
I hate to say it, but my team was worse, and if my team made this, I would say the same thing. They wouldn't have a chance in hell.
It's fair, and it goes back, and I don't want to derail it, but it goes back to the larger point, in my opinion.
We're talking about Cincinnati for so much, and they're
too many teams make the playoffs, and it's a little embarrassing, but it is what it is. Let's dive into the West. Let's give the Western Conference some love here. We always do Western Conference second. I feel like next time we need to flip it, but a whole other side point. Number 2 seeded.
The W.
Exactly. We're both Eastern Conference team lovers, so I guess that's the issue. Number 2 seeded Seattle Sounders are going to be taking on the number 7 seeded FC Dallas. Historically, there's been 37 games played across these two teams. Seattle holds the all-time record with 17 wins, 10 draws, and 10 losses. This season, each matchup between these teams ended up in a draw. There was 2 games in total. Seattle ended their season with their last 5 games with 3 wins and 2 draws. Dallas with a win and 4 draws. So as you can hear that and probably picture it, one team's on way better form than the other. Do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I can.
This one, just by the way, was the shortest thinking through process I had to give once I saw some numbers and stuff.
Through it, honestly.
Sorry to one team.
Let's start with FC Dallas here.
Okay, give it to me. How does Dallas do it?
Oh, that's what I have to say.
I'm
just kidding. Dallas kind of 1 win and 4 draws, like you said, in the last 5. They're coming in, obviously, as the weaker team, right? Looking up at Seattle here.
Yes.
With Seattle getting James at home as the 2 seed. I think Jesus Ferreira is their guy, right? That's their go-to. 12 goals this season.
Yeah, he's the dude.
And he's going to have to do it again. He's going to have to score probably 2, 3, 4 goals in this series alone for them to have a shot here. Alan Velasco is really good as well. I couldn't give it away.
That's my biggest hot take in MLS is I think Alan Velasco might be the most overrated player in Major League Soccer.
He's fine. They're fine. I feel like FC Dallas is a collection of players that's they just work where they should.
Work well.
This is their peak, right? This is everything went right, and this is where they are. Goal for New York Red Bulls.
God damn it. I picked them, so I should be happy, but fuck.
But yeah, so I guess I didn't go that in depth on FC Dallas, but I just quite honestly think that them getting to this spot is probably where they should have been, or on the high end of where they could have.
This is their ceiling.
Yeah,
I'm talking ceilings and floors.
I think you're now going up against a Seattle team, which I can let you go on Seattle, but that's just so talented.
Yeah,
there's so much talent, and there always is.
Look, the 2 points I have for Dallas is this: Dallas are going to be out Sebastian Lletget, Giovanni Jesus, and Facundo Quignon in this game. So a potential starting backline member, a potential starting midfield member, and Sebastian Lletget, who should be a starting midfield member. I really like this team defensively. They are one of the better teams defensively in Major League Soccer. They always seem to be year in and year out. I like Nkosi Tafari. I like Marco Farfan. I think Martin Paz, their goalkeeper, is wildly underrated in Major League Soccer.
I feel like this FC Dallas team is almost every FC Dallas team's
it's very similar.
Always very like this.
Yeah,
I don't even know what the word is, but this is it. This is their team.
They're really good defensively. They have a solid system that allows
scrappy,
there's a fight in them, and there's a solid striker, but there's no real help around the striker. So look, and to your point,
if they spend a little more money, would they be really good? Probably.
Jesus Ferreira is the dude, right? I think if he gets a little bit of help, maybe from Bernard Kamungo, we saw the brace on decision day. He's a dude who was balling out for the U23s only a week or 2 ago. If he can find some form, I give Dallas a little bit of a shot. That I think. There's some offensive help there, but look, It's Seattle Sounders for me. They're maybe one of the most balanced teams in Major League Soccer in terms of home versus road records. 7 wins on the road, 7 wins at home. Again, you're not blowing people away, but 7 wins on the road is pretty decent, and 7 wins at home, you're kind of splitting that there. Christian Roldan has a goal and an assist and 2 assists in his last 5 games. They have one of the better back lines, if we're going to talk about defenses, in Major League Soccer. 3 shutouts in their last 5 games with only 2 goals allowed in total. And then the point to me is, for whatever reason, when I was looking at this, I'm like, why do I always feel like I'm talking Sounders, FC Dallas in the playoffs? Well, 2019, Seattle defeated Dallas in the playoffs. 2020, Seattle defeated Dallas in the playoffs. 2021, Dallas didn't make the playoffs. 2022, I think Dallas lost to Austin, and Seattle didn't make the playoffs last year. So 2023, this is the 3rd time in the last 5 years that Seattle and Dallas will face off in the playoffs, and I think it's going to be the 3rd time in 5 years that Dallas loses to Seattle in the playoffs. That's my pick. Seattle Sounders take this.
Just a quick little extra too. Leo Chu is a very fun player to watch. I think we praised him a lot at the beginning of the season, and he kind of went off our radar a little bit. But he's awesome. I think their attack, like Ladero in his final postseason, right? Like, there's a lot for this team to kind of rally around and build around, and it's just Seattle, man. Like, I'm not gonna pick against Seattle in this round.
No, exactly. Like
2 games at home. Like, get out of here.
Jordan Morris is scoring this season. They have Brian Schmetzer still. Joao Paulo's back, and he's balling out and he's playing well. It's tough to pick against Seattle here, especially when Dallas maybe wasn't the hottest heading into the playoffs.
I think when Seattle has their team, playing, they can beat anyone. Like, they're that type of team, that good.
I agree.
And it's almost like every year, there's them in Portland are sort of similar in this. Like, people are gonna hate me for saying that, but like, they kind of just always are there. I mean, obviously Portland missed this year, but they had that run at the end of the season that
they're always around.
Seattle is like, they have these lulls where like sections of the season just kind of vanish from your mind. You're just like, what happened? Like, where are they? And then it's like, oh, they're in second. Like, oh, okay, yep. They
always know when to turn it on, because they've always had the core there winning, and the core knows when to turn it on. Right? It's the Roldans, it's the Morrises, Laderos, everything like that. Exactly.
Another great manager.
I'm not saying, again, I'm not picking. There's no standout team to me really that I can say, like, I think this team's easily going to win MLS Cup. I don't think that team exists this season. But I think Seattle is probably a fair shout in the Western Conference. I think another team that is in the Western Conference is that has a pretty fair shout is LAFC, as they're the number 3 seed taking on the number 6 seed of Vancouver Whitecaps. The history here: 15 games played, 4 of them happened this season. 15 games played all time between these two teams. LAFC, they hold the all-time record with 6 wins, 4 draws, and 5 losses. This season, like I said, there has been 4 matchups. LAFC has 2 wins. Vancouver has a win and a draw between these teams. LAFC has 2 wins, a draw, and 2 losses in their last 5, when Vancouver is coming in with a win and 4 draws in their last 5.
A lot of draws in these last 5.
A lot of draws. Yeah. And again, another decision day matchup where this ended up in a draw for both teams. 2 missed penalty kicks from Ryan Gauld on decision day, which was an interesting one. Ball don't lie. That's all I got to say there. But LAFC, very good team at home. 10 wins at home on the season. You have the Golden Boot winner in Dennis Bouanga, who has 4 goals in 4 games this season against Vancouver, and on top of that has 6 goals in his last 5 games total, and that's including, I think, one of their last 5 games was Campeones Cup or whatever. I know it ended in a 0-0 draw, but still, whatever. Carlos Vela also has 3 goals in 4 games against Vancouver this season. LAFC just know how to play Vancouver. I think decision day was a little bit of a foot off the pedal, because it's like, okay, we've made the playoffs, like, we're all good, whatever.
You also, like, there's the back of the mind, like, hey, we might play this team 3 times over the next 2 weeks. Maybe don't show them everything, right? Like, I don't think LAFC, or, like, obviously there was a chance they wouldn't have this matchup.
Yeah.
But I feel like you kind of go into that knowing, like, both of these teams, I think, had confirmed playoff spaces at that point.
Yeah.
So I feel like you kind of go into that like, hey, we're just gonna. My point is, I don't think you can take too much from that game, knowing that both these teams have to hide a little bit.
I think especially when that was the fourth matchup of the season, right? And you're potentially going to see this team now that they're facing each other
3 more times.
seven times this season, which is you don't typically see that in soccer globally anywhere around the world, right? So I think
playing out a full like NBA playoff series.
you have to be a little cautious with what you're showing. So I think that's 100% fair. But like at the end of the day, this team are the reigning champions of Major League Soccer still. This team knows how to win in the playoffs. This team knows how to win in knockout series competitions. We've seen it with Campeones Cup and everything in between. I just can't not pick them in their first round series. So I'm going with them. I do have a lot of positives I could say for Vancouver too. I really like Vanni Sartini. I really like Ryan Gauld and Brian White and Richie Larea. And I think this team has a lot of talent mixed in. And I think they are probably not considered one of the better teams in Major League Soccer when they should be. And Vanni Sartini should be considered one of the better coaches, but it's LAFC.
I mean, I think you really previewed this very well.
Sorry.
To the point where I almost don't need to say anything.
I just took it over. I'm sorry.
I wasn't expecting you to go that deep on Vancouver for like a minute there. I think Brian White is my like Vancouver like revelation, right? Like he's been awesome. 15 goals on the season. He's been fun to watch. Their attack is fun. I'm a little upset you didn't even mention Takaoka. And writing down names like that, or just even saying they have a good goalie, man. Like that matters.
They do,
but I think I have to pick LAFC and go with the agreement, I guess, here with you.
Look, LAFC, if you want to support your boy in net, then support him and go for it. I'm fine with it.
My thing here is over 3 games. I don't think Vancouver wins 2. Versus LAFC. Now, do I think they could win 1? I think this is one of the rarer series where they could win 1.
Yeah.
And it could be a 2-1. But I think Bouanga this guy is on an absolute tear. And when you have a striker in form at this level in a playoff scenario, like think of World Cup type strikers that suddenly catch fire. And it can completely change the complexion of the team, the entire game. And obviously Bouanga's been amazing all year, right? But all signs point towards him keeping that quality going into the playoffs. And if that happens, like this is another one of this LAFC, like we've had multiple conversations about them, and I feel like each time they sort of let us down. Because this is one of those teams that like we've talked about the expectations. I don't really need to go too deep on that, but they have their expectations for themselves. Here's another time to prove it.
I fully agree with you. It's not to just be like, ooh, shiny LAFC toy, I'm picking them, but LAFC are LAFC for a reason, and big time scorers win you competitions like this.
I think Vancouver is probably the best. I think this is probably the best competition.
If there's going to be any major upset, I think Vancouver could pull that off 100%.
Of all the matchups in the West, is this one and a lot of room before the next time.
I agree with you fully. My biggest thing is Dennis Bouanga, though, who's been fantastic. When you look at him across multiple competitions, if you look at his 2023 total stats, so this is for MLS, Champions League, Leagues Cup, and his one Campeones Cup game. He has played in 43 games this season. He has scored and this is not MLS assists, this is normal assists. In 43 games, he has scored 33 goals and 14 assists. Like
that's absolutely mental.
He's not the MLS MVP, but he is the MVP of the season.
He was in the conversation though for a long part of the year.
100%, and he slowed down in scoring. Oh, boo-hoo! The guy who scored 33 goals across all competitions is
slowing down and scoring is like, oh man, now he's only getting like 0.8 goals per 90.
It literally, it's
I wonder what
insane.
it ended up being, honestly, but yeah.
So we're both going LAFC.
Yeah,
but I think
LAFC.
we'll both give our love to almost at Houston, to Vancouver.
If I had to watch one Western Conference series, like I could only watch one, it would be this one.
I think that's a fair shout. This next series would be my number 2 pick, though. Number 4, Houston Dynamo taking on number 5, RSL. Historically, 24 games played between these two clubs in MLS, or not strictly in MLS, just overall. RSL holds the all-time series record, though, with 10 wins, 7 draws, and 7 losses. This season, Houston has 2 wins in their matchups. There's also 1 draw between these two teams as well. Houston has 3 wins and 2 draws in their last 5, while RSL has 3 wins, a draw, and a loss in their last 5. So both of these teams coming in pretty similar, decent form, I would say, overall. Jason, since I went way too long on LAFC, I'll let you take this, and you can take the full preview if you want.
I will start with Hector Herrera for Houston, because I think what Ben Olsen and Houston has been able to do this season is incredible. I know both of us picked them to finish very far low in the down in the conference. I think a lot of people did. I was very, very vocal about my not faith, but like the opposite, like not faith. Ben Olsen.
You're not faith. Yes.
Yeah. There's a word, but I don't have it on the top of mind. When you talk this much for a podcast, you lose regular words. Okay, it happens to me all the time. But anyway, they've figured out a way to really unlock Hector Herrera and get his full potential. And I think last season, with the World Cup and with like his first season, and I think he's even said like it was not what he expected, I guess, out of the gates. I think what he's been able to do this season is truer to what he actually is, right? Like the guy's a legend. The guy's an incredible player. And the team revolves around him, right? You have other talent. You have Artur that they brought in. You have Corey Baird, who I've always been very high on Corey Baird. I think I might be like president of that fan club.
You've always said that about the man. So yeah, ride it, King. You go, King.
So I mean, in all seriousness, like I think Houston has a very high quality team, and Hector Herrera, who is leading them and is, you know, a very experienced kind of key cog in their team. On the other side, though, RSL, I'll let you take most of it, but I think RSL is also a pretty strong team. I think they're a little weaker coming in. I think these are two teams that have really surprised this year. For two teams that like I just wasn't that high on. I think both of them really, really smashed expectations. I mean, I even went as far as picking, I think, Ben Olsen for Coach of the Year.
You did.
But yeah, I'm gonna let you go. I can't speak for that long at a time.
No, it's fine. I agree with everything you said about Houston. The only other player that I want to just give a little love to is Coco Carrasquilla, right? Like internationally, we saw him dominate the Gold Cup and bring Panama to a final against Mexico.
John Tolkien just hit a free kick goal.
John Tolkien, we called it. Not that's that shocking of a thing, but John Tolkien needs to be big.
Hey, I think their best player is going to be good. Wait, this is a good goal.
Shocking.
I'm trying to interrupt you, but I'm trying to interrupt.
That's fine. John Tolkien just hit a banger. As I'm looking at my notes reading. But the only other player that I would mention on this Houston side is Coco Carrasquilla. You know, like I said, internationally with Panama. Led I'm watching a free kick. I feel like Kalina could have got to
that. That's not a goal I expected out of Tolkien, I'll tell you that much.
No, not out of a left back, but is what it is. Karski has been good. He's been very good, widely underrated still for the season he's been having, because he's not a winger, but he's been asked to play there. He's been doing it at a pretty high level. He also does have 2 goals against RSL this season in the 3 total games they've played against each other. So that is something to think about. He's been good against RSL, but I will give RSL the love of RSL is a pretty good road team. They have the second most road wins in Major League Soccer with 8, only trailing Orlando City on that part. Diego Luna has been absolutely on fire lately. He's scored in back-to-back games for RSL. To me, the question mark with them that is causing me to pick against them and go with Houston is going to be the fact of there's injury question marks around Chicho Arango and Brian Vera. Their starting striker, their starting center back. Brian Vera has been very good for being a very young center back in this league this entire season, and he's doubtful, I'm pretty sure, for this game. Chicho Arango, I think I read that he is going to be out for at least the first game against Houston. And if that's true, then that's a major loss. We know he is one of the most talented strikers in the league. So with those two question marks or injury-wise around this RSL team and a lot of other players kind of being out of form, I'm going to go with Houston being able to do the thing over RSL and take the series. So I'm picking Houston there.
Yeah, I am also going with Houston. I just think there's a lot of, honestly, like, I think there's a lot of expectation now in Houston. Like, I think it's pretty exciting for a lot of them going into this. The way their season went was just awesome for them. And I feel like they're coming into this with, like, a lot of momentum just as a club, not necessarily, like, looking at games, like, form. I think just momentum in terms of, like, the spirits at the club, which are probably the highest they've been in, honestly, as long as I can.
We've talked about it on this podcast before, kind of the shift in mentality, I think, for what the Houston Dynamo are going into. It was the Open Cup preview episode, and I think it still holds true today that I think this is a different era of Houston Dynamo soccer that we're going to see over the next few years. And it's exciting for them. It's exciting for the fan base and kind of everything in between. I think we just have to wrap things up this episode, Jason, with talking about St. Louis City SC. I mean, again, we don't know who's going to be taking them on right now, whether it's going to be Sporting Kansas City, whether it's going to be the San Jose Earthquakes, but I have just a similar feeling that I had with Cincinnati. I don't think SKC or San Jose are good enough this season. I think they're in a complete nowhere near the type of level of soccer that we've seen consistently from St. Louis all season long. I've gone through all of the matchups that St. Louis had against SKC and St. Louis had against San Jose. St. Louis has had a lot of players do very well against both of these teams this season. Samuel Adeniran has scored 2 goals against San Jose and 2 goals against Sporting Kansas City this season. Indiana Vasilev and Edward Lovin have been very good against Sporting Kansas City specifically. You know, I just think, even though, yes, this is St. Louis's first city ever, St. Louis City's first season ever. I just messed that all up. There was their first season ever in existence of Major League Soccer, and everything in between. I know that some people might hold that against them and they don't know the toughness of the playoffs and everything like that. This team seems to have been built differently. This team has had a little extra, just something, I think, just this extra added spirit that I don't think we've seen many other expansion teams come in with outside of maybe LAFC. And I think St. Louis is different. I think they are special. And I don't think SKC or San Jose give them any trouble, no matter which team we're talking about, to be honest.
Yeah, I think this is similar to the Cincinnati conversation, where it's like, an 8 or 9 seed, regardless, is just not that good, right? Like, just the nature of being an 8 or 9 seed, you're
compared to
not
a 1 seed,
a great team. You know, you didn't get that many points. You had 40 points or so, 43 points in a 38 or 39 game season. So, like, it's just not ideal necessarily. It's like not the matchup that you're going to get thrilled about. I would agree. I think St. Louis is that team that's just kind of like almost like doubted the whole time. Like, even when they started off really well, I was still sort of like, oh, they have been getting some of these weird goals, and what's going on here? And they just kind of kept rolling, and they like, the thing that's interesting to me too is they've dealt with injuries. They dealt with injury to Klaus.
Yeah.
Dealt with different sort of lumps in the road that they've been able to kind of navigate really well. And I get the playoff argument in some sense as like an expansion club, but I don't think it really is that big of a difference maker, especially when a lot of these players, like some of them have experience, right? Like Tim Parker has played in playoffs, and like every team has players who have never been in the play. I guess you could say every team, but off the top of my head, I would say most teams probably have a player or two that's probably going to play these playoffs for the first time, right? So it's sort of like I don't want to say overrated because I think it does matter, but I don't think it matters when the gap quality to team is as big as this one.
Is it also potentially like, I don't know. I agree with you to the point of like, look, like Tim Parker, Jake Nervinsky, Roman Berkey, like, I would say guys like that have played in big games in their careers, whether it's MLS Cup playoffs, whether it's, German Cup finals in a Roman Berkey sense.
Roman Berkey has probably played in the Champions League, has he not?
I would definitely assume so. Starting goalkeeper for Borussia Dortmund, I would assume so. Samuel Adinarin, right? He's won and played in USL Cup finals, and I'm not comparing any of those maybe quote unquote lesser tournaments or experiences to an MLS Cup playoffs, but I think a lot of these guys have played in big games. Do I get concerned with some of the foreign guys who maybe haven't had levels of success of like a Roman Berkey? Yes, but I just think there's so much. I even think this team making a run to the MLS Next Pro Cup Finals last year, like they do have a core base of guys who played together. Joao Klaus was playing in MLS Next Pro last season. Not only a handful of games, but he was still playing in like around this city, around this team. Like I just think it's so different. And I feel like that's maybe why they've come in differently, and because of just the mindset that all these guys have had coming into their first MLS season. And I just don't think that they're going to be scared away.
What I love about this team is they took a different approach to an expansion side, one that was sort of criticized, or maybe not sort of. I feel like
we criticized it.
Yeah. And was very different than teams like LAFC, like Atlanta, who came in with some splash signing, some major moves. But St. Louis has sort of proven that there's an alternative way to do that without making these huge signings, these tons of money, these big time. I mean, it's not like St. Louis, like Roman Berkey is a great DP, right? Like that's a big time signing. But I think they've sort of done it in a different way that shows that, for an expansion side coming in, there are alternative ways to be good. Cincinnati was obviously awful for a couple of years. Before they're good now. But yeah, I mean, I think just playing soccer in America is different than Europe or anywhere else. The travel times alone are way different. But at this point, I feel like St. Louis, again, is like, that's another thing they've been able to navigate really well as an expansion team with a lot of new faces and a lot of new players. And I just don't think in round one versus SKC or San Jose, it's going to matter at all.
I can agree with that. And with that comes the end of our round one preview. We did it in an hour and 13 minutes. Not too shabby, I do have to say. I thought we were going to go longer. You're on mute there, Jason. So just letting you know that.
It was fun. It was fun. And we even got some predictions in the beginning.
Exactly. And I'm going to wrap things up here. Jason's talking while he's on mute. I can't spit out a full sentence at this point, but I want to thank everyone for listening or watching this episode. And please enjoy the first round of the playoffs. We'll be back next week covering round 2 and all the action from round 1 and making more predictions as we go on. And, obviously whoever's got more picks right, we'll be talking a little smack next week, but enjoy the playoffs.
I'm going a little out there on some of these picks, to be fair.
Hey, you make your picks at whatever discretion you want to make your picks at, sir.
You're going to be real sad when I'm kicking your ass.
When Red Bulls are winning this game? Okay.
Yeah. It's a playing game. It's a playing game. It's fine to get it wrong.
Enjoy the playoffs, everyone. We'll chat with you guys next week.
Peace.